guys, it's Samantha with Black Nation News, and today I wanted to talk to you guys about a few different things that's going on with the Black community. So first, I'm pissed off, but I'm not shocked that Trump is offering U.S. assistance to France after the Notre Dame fire. France is already hogging up a lot of money from Black countries such as Haiti. A lot of African countries are paying a great amount of taxes to France, and France would actually collapse. Their entire economy would collapse if everybody wasn't sending all this money to France. All these Black countries weren't having to tax and send this money to France. So let me just try to get down here and get to this article really quickly because my computer is acting up. And I think because this video is trying to show, and I wish I could pause it because I don't need the video to show. There we go. So it says President Trump offered his condolences to Emmanuel Macron of France, along with U.S. assistance in rebuilding Notre Dame Cathedral a day after it was devastated by fire, the White House said on Tuesday. Notre Dame will continue to serve as the symbol of France, including its freedom of religion and democracy, White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders said in a statement. We remember with grateful hearts the tolling of Notre Dame's bells on September 12, 2001, in solemn recognition of the tragic September 11th attacks on American soil. Those bells will sound again. So what I want to say really quickly on that, just that comment alone, that first two paragraphs, is, white people, they are allies with each other. America is basically another European country, aka white country. It's majority white people. It's racist against Black people. It's always been racist, and it was built. It literally was built to serve white people, and they called it manifest destiny. And that's actually one of the things I do remember from school is learning about that white people felt like they had this right to basically oppress others and conquer the world, in such loose terms. Basically, that's just just to sum it all up. So white people may have a lot of differences, but for one, I don't feel like we really see it a whole lot. And even if we do, when it comes down to it, when it's time for them to come together, they do that. And that's something that's definitely missing in the Black community. For example, right now, ADOS is very much under attack from a lot of different people who claim that they are for Black liberation, for the Black race, for uplifting the Black race and helping the Black race move forward and progress in the world. And it's just really, I can't even put into words the strangeness of it. Because some of the people I follow, like Dr. Boyce Watkins, I used to actually like to leave Kweli, but not anymore. Then there's groups like In Cobra that claim to be for Black people. Then you've got Al Sharpton and Mark Thompson and all those civil rights leaders who claim to be for Black people and helping us. You have NAACP, who has not even spoken out to support ADOS. And you have a lot of Black immigrants who are going against ADOS because we're not holding their hand anymore, so to speak. And it's not that we don't like Black immigrants, but we do see a lot of Black immigrants coming into America and basically kind of aligning themselves with the white supremacists by telling us to just pull up our boots, our bootstraps, and they really just talking out of the side of their neck. We're pulling up our bootstraps. That's not the issue. The issue is that no matter what we build, Whitey will tear it down to ensure we never are a competition to them. And, it's not like in Africa, when people come from Africa or wherever, that they can build things and it won't get torn down because it's more Black people over there, or it's, governed by Black people, ran by Black people. But it's like here we are the minority, one of the minority groups in America. So, it's not that hard to look up history and see all the times that white people have made sure to write laws, to bomb our communities, to create different systems to ensure that Black people cannot rise. So it's just like no one else gets that treatment. Other immigrants are able to come to America and build their communities without obstacle, and no one says anything. Like there's all everywhere I go, there's a little China, there's a little Italy, there's all these different like communities for these different immigrants, and it's celebrated. No one sees it as being racist. No one sees it as being divisive. It just gets to be there and gets to be built. And people actually enjoy going to those communities and learning about those cultures. So it's like, why can't African ADOS, foundational Native Black Americans, do the same thing? Especially when so many people in the world actually very much so enjoy our culture. So it's kind of like just so hypocritical. How many people, like I actually get pissed off when I see non-Black people enjoying Black American culture, like hip hop, and the styles we wear, like the sneakers, like Jordans, and just everything about us, like the way we talk, etc. But then they turn around and act like, we're shit. Like they don't really want to ever give us the credit of where anything came, like the culture or anything came from that's successful. They make sure to whitewash it and act like white people created it or someone else created it. So they love to not give us that credit, to oppress us and try to shut us up and suppress our voices, while they're basically being culture vultures and profiting off of things that we created. So that's just another way that they're stealing our chance to quote unquote pull ourselves up by the bootstraps. Because like let me close this stupid thing out. If you can't even profit off of your own culture, everyone else is profiting off your culture. Like that's just one more thing where it's like, this is why we're not making money, because they don't allow it. They steal a lot of things that we create. And to some degree, I do blame Black people because we don't take our creation seriously. We should have patented, because white people love to patent something, so we should have patented rap and everything a long time ago. But it's like Black people were too busy partying to be thinking about like, wow, this is going to really make us a lot of money. This is a new genre of music. Let's protect this. And I'm gonna give another one story of someone I've worked with who they had like a really great idea, and I told them, you need to trademark this, you need to protect it, years ago. And this person was like, oh no, no one else is gonna think like me, so I don't need to do that, da da da. And then, let's fast forward 3 years later, we find out that other companies are copying this person's concept, this person's intellectual property, this person's idea that they came up with on their own. And now this person was like, okay, we need to trademark it. You were right. And they really didn't want to admit I was right even then. But it's like Black people don't take themselves seriously enough. Or sometimes we don't really give ourselves the credit that we are owed. And I think that, I'm always going to just say it just comes down to lack of self-esteem, having very low self-esteem, and not thinking that you're worth it. And you are, so it's like, if you create something, protect it and call people out on their shit when they try to steal your ideal or whatever, just like white people or anybody else would do. And the reality is, like, these are things that belong to us. And like, if it was someone else, like another community, like Chinese community or Indian or whoever, they would, they're not really, I feel like they're not really going through stuff like that as much as we are, just because they're more, people sometimes are, I feel like other cultures are more respected as well. Like other races, people have more respect as a whole, because they are kind of like a part of white supremacy. So it's just like a lot of things that's coming down on Black people that people don't really think about. Oh yeah, speaking of that, I have to say one more thing. There was another post on Facebook, and this guy, he was Black, and I'm not sure if he was a Black immigrant or first generational American or whatever, but he was served in the Marines. And the post was talking about systemic racism, and he was saying that, oh, I don't think that what is happening with Black people is systemic racism, because look at me. I went in the Marines. I'm making good money. My family's successful. I'm doing for myself. And so fucking tired of that narrative. Like, shut up. You know what I'm saying? my response got the most likes out of all of them. Not that I really care, because I actually responded out of my truth, and I left that post behind. Like, I actually forgot about it because I'm so busy fighting for Black liberation and doing other things. So I just happened to like be scrolling down my Facebook and seeing the alerts, and I saw that, I had an alert, and I checked it, and it had like 34 likes what I said. And I basically just said really simply, I was like, I served in the US Army as well, and I'm not doing badly either, but that doesn't mean systemic racism does not exist. And I posted the chart that Antonio Moore created where it shows the wealth of Black families compared to the wealth of white families, and where that ceiling lies. And if there's like 4 or 5 levels, Black people basically tap out at like the second level, while white people can go all the way up to the 5th level of wealth. Just to, put it bluntly, like, I don't have the picture in front of me, but that's basically what's going on. Like, we can't even get to those levels that white people can get to. And then you have the Oprahs of the world and maybe the Michael Jordans. Like, you have the onesie twosies, but that doesn't represent the majority of Black people. It doesn't represent even a good amount of Black people, to even try to say, oh, what are you talking about, white supremacy and systemic racism? That doesn't exist. Look at us. We're all doing great. It's like, no, we're really not. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is just how much we are not doing great as a Black race, and why reparations is so important. And Donald Trump, giving money to other countries like he doesn't have a problem in his own damn country. Fuck a church. Fuck that cathedral, Notre Dame. I could give 2 shits about it. And there's one more thing I want to bring up. Like, it made me think about this comment this white woman asked me, because I was posting like something about reparations, and to, everyone try to go and donate to Marianne Williamson. She's the only presidential candidate that has openly been speaking out for reparations for ADOS peoples from the very beginning. She did not just jump on the bandwagon when it became a bigger topic later down the line. She came out the gate talking about it. So I just want to make that clear. Like, Kamala Harris, Cory Booker, Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, blah, blah, blah. Like, these people, we need to get away from like, oh, let's vote the lesser of 2 evils. No, we have 4 ways we can vote: Republican, Democrat, Independent, or you can write a name in. So you have 4 different choices. And that's what our ancestors died for the right for us to have, is they died for us to have the right just to be included in the process of choosing who is over us, making decisions, making laws, etc. They did not die so that we can vote Democrat. Okay, so I have to make that clear to people, and I'm gonna keep saying it and keep saying it until Black people get it. Our ancestors did not die. Nowhere have I ever seen anywhere where they said we're dying so that our descendants can vote Democrat. No one said that. And if people did their research, they would know that back in the day, Democrats used to actually be the quote unquote racist party that was oppressing Black people, and the Republicans were the ones that were quote unquote for Black people. So let's just keep it 100. Those parties are one and the same. They're one and the same. They're both racist. They don't give a shit about Black people. You can look through history. Like, what have they ever done that's collectively helped Black folks? Like, seriously. And people can say, oh, well, they give, Black Democrats have given welfare program. I can't do shit with welfare. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I want to leave and move to Africa and invest some money in Africa or do other things, I can't do that with a welfare program. I can't do that with SNAP benefits and a WIC voucher. So miss me with that bullshit. Like, Bernie Sanders is the king of like socialist programs, but yet he's worth like $2.5 million. And when someone asked him, how did you get to have that wealth? He was like, well, I wrote a best bookseller book. And if you do it, you can make that kind of millions also, which is a fucking lie. It's not going to happen like that for the average person, because you don't have that publicity. You don't have the notoriety that he has. So that's a lie. That's an absolute lie. And so with that being said, it's like, people have to remember, like, you don't have to vote Republican or Democrat. That's so frustrating when I hear people say, well, who should we vote for? I mean, we don't want Trump to win. Like, you're so scared of Trump. Give me a break. I really could I care less if Trump is president again, because everybody before him has been Trump. Even Obama was Trump. You know, there's more people that died under Obama, more unarmed black people that died under Obama than Trump. Give me a break. Like, what did Obama do that was so great? And he was black. So all the presidents before Obama were Trump. They're all racist. They all put you in mass incarceration. They all put you in jail. They all had the war on drugs. They all, turned Andrew Johnson, turning the laws around so that and giving land back to the Confederate traitors of this country, the Confederate soldiers who should have been held for treason, got their land back and was able to re-enslave the people, the freedmen, the black people who were supposed to be free. So they want to say, oh, yeah, Abraham Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Yeah, he did. And then he got assassinated like the next day and that made Andrew Johnson his successor, the president. And Andrew Johnson pretty much did what Trump is doing right now. He undid all of Abraham Lincoln's hard work. He undid the 40 acres and a mule. He undid everything. And he gave everything back to the racist white Southerners and gave them back the power when they should have been in their asses in prison, in federal prison. He gave back the power. These people committed a crime. They went to war against their own country, against their own president, President Abraham Lincoln. That's what the Confederates did. And they get rewarded with land and resources and money. Like, you guys saw my other video where I discussed how fast slaveholders recovered their wealth after the Civil War. So let's be real here. Like, we can show facts. We can show data. I don't have to sit here and stutter. I can show you numbers. I can show you science that doesn't lie. So all these other people are yip yapping. Give me a break. So if you don't know who to vote for, if it comes down to the election of 2020 and you got Elizabeth Warren and Trump, and Elizabeth Warren really doesn't care about black folks, like a Marianne Williamson, say she's the independent party. And then you have you can write someone in, you can write Mickey Mouse in, you can write yourself in. I would say vote for Marianne Williamson. That's what I would say. Go to the polls, exercise the right to vote, which is what your ancestors did die for, is for you to have the right to vote, to be an American citizen and vote like every other goddamn immigrant who's coming over here voting. Why is somebody allowed to come over here from Never Never Land and vote and you're not supposed to be voting, but you've been here 400, 500 years? Child, bye. So negative, absolutely not. So if I go there and I'm I don't agree with these two primary candidates and I want to vote independent, that's what the fuck I'm going to do. Period, point blank, period. That's what I'm going to do. Or I'm going to write in Mickey Mouse. Fuck that dumb shit. That's just what it is. So I want to make it clear to people, you have 4 choices to vote: Republican, Democratic, Independent Party, and Mickey Mouse. No, I'm joking. And you can write a name in, but you don't have to be this. This is not a popularity contest. So you don't have to be well, we know Independent Party has such a slim chance of winning and blah, blah, blah. That's not the point. The point is to make a statement. And the point is to probably try to get Marianne Williamson or whoever is really for our interests to win. But it's, if she doesn't win, you still made a statement, because they're going to still say black people overwhelmingly voted independent this election because Marianne Williamson was about reparations. So all the people we don't vote for, the Democrats and the Republicans who we're not going to vote for, can see that we're not playing games with you. And we're not going to waste our vote either. I'm not sitting at home. Fuck that. Like Dr. Mumi Saraki said, and I've been saying this since years ago, whatever white people want you to do, you do the opposite. If they're trying to, because this is how you fight white supremacy. It makes it simple. The code is you do the opposite. So if they're trying to suppress your vote, they're trying to find ways so that black people can't vote, then that means it is very, very fucking important that you go vote. That's what that means. Extremely important that you go vote. So you sitting at home really doesn't do a whole lot. It does make a statement, because it's yeah, we didn't vote. We didn't vote. Got it. But as you guys can see, there's a HR, I think it's number 4. HR 4, where that's our voting rights. Black people don't have permanent voting rights. I don't know if people know that. So if you're sitting at home, and I'm telling y'all from a person who used to not vote. I used to not vote. I didn't understand. So I'm educating you guys like I've just been educated by Yvette Carnell, Antonio Moore, and just self-education, like reading up, studying more about it, and just putting two and two together. But a lot of it's self-education, a lot of it's in Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore, and just understanding why my vote matters. So I used to not vote. I've told you guys probably in other videos. I didn't think our vote mattered. So I was like, I'm staying at home. Fuck this. Like, I don't believe either one of these candidates, Republican or Democrat, are for Black people. The only time I came out to vote was for Obama, and I voted for him twice. He did nothing for us, and it was identity politics. We basically, every Black person will say, I voted for Obama because he was Black. Let's keep it 100. Didn't nobody know what the hell he stood for? Because if we did, we probably wouldn't have voted for him. So if you go ahead and say, like, I'm gonna stay home, that may make the government think, well, maybe they don't need voting rights because they don't hardly ever vote. Right? Like I just said, we don't have permanent voting rights yet. Black people don't have that. So that's something else that actually needs to be on the ticket. Like that's something else we should be demanding along with reparations, is we need permanent voting rights. We deserve to have a voice in a country that we fucking built to determine who's going to run this damn country. ADOS peoples, American descendants of slaves, if everyone else has a say, we definitely fucking have a say. We have a say more than anybody else on this earth. Who the hell is in charge of America? So you need to go vote for your local elections and your national elections. I know for too long, until Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore really started teaching what they were teaching, with data, with numbers, so stuff that made sense, I did not feel like an American. I didn't feel like this country was mine. So it took a long time for me to like really sink in the data and the stuff that Antonio Moore and Yvette Carnell would say, because I got behind their movement because it makes sense. I know that we deserve reparations as a Black people because that's for justice for what you did to Black people in this country. It was that's unacceptable, inexcusable. Slavery, fucking unacceptable, right? So that's what I really was like. I'm behind that. Now, I was posting the flag on Twitter with my Black fist, but I really never felt like I was an American until now. I always felt like Black people weren't. They consider us 3/5 of a human. It's just like the way this country, I've seen this country treat Black people since its inception, since it became America. I felt like this is not our country really, and we don't really have anywhere to go. Like Black Americans didn't have nowhere to go. Like we didn't know where we belonged to in Africa. Nobody came back to get us. Nobody was claiming us. No one claims us now. There's no African country that says, "Hey, we're going to stand up and say we are the country for African Americans." They don't have a country. We can be your country. You want to come home? We can be your home in Africa. No one's done that ever. No African countries, 54 countries have never done that. They've never done it. So we're out here, like me, I could give my story. We're out here doing blood work, doing DNA tests, trying to find out where's our country. Where do I belong? You know, it's just sad. It's like I tell people, it's like we're like little orphan stepchildren. Like it's like nobody wants us. So it wasn't until Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore like really started giving this information that I openly received. Because for me, I can tell when something makes sense. I can tell when something is authentic. The ADOS movement makes sense and it's authentic. That's why I don't really entertain the haters like that, because I'm just like, if we keep pushing for what our primary focus is, which is reparations and justice for slavery here in America, and then we can go after the corporations and everybody else later, the truth always wins. The truth is going to win. Because we got these little haters here and there. They're like little minions like nipping at our ankles. Like, I can't be bothered with that. I just can't. Like, it's like this movement is so big that it hit the national stage within like months of the election season starting. We like shut down Kamala Harris in like a week, if that. That's what ADOS did. And I want to say that this movement, ADOS, this name gave me an identity. It made me feel like I was part of a tribe and I belonged somewhere. And this is my lineage. This is my history. And it does matter. We matter. No more of us like people speaking for us, no more people talking over us, no more people telling our stories. That's done. That's what New Black Media is about. We're telling our own damn stories. You can't talk for me anymore. You can't pretend that we love slavery and we were nice with massa and we liked picking cotton. That's not going to work. We get to speak for ourselves now. And people don't like that very much. And I don't care. That's the beauty of it. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, I'm so outraged with everything that's been happening for centuries. So you think I give two shits what people think about our truth? I don't. And the reality is there are a lot of Black immigrants that have been traitors. They've been showing their ass. They've been jumping on their platforms that white people give them, and they've been crapping on Black people, Black Americans, ADOS peoples. And then there's a lot of Black immigrants that come here. They don't try to bring us into the fold like we're all one. They move into their neighborhoods or their communities, and they just act like we don't exist. And I've talked to several Black immigrants, several, because I was in Europe. I've traveled. Obviously, I was in the military. I've been around a lot of different Africans, and they've told me that they were told they should not absolutely stay away from African Americans. We are lazy. We are ghetto. We are just ignorant. The last person that told me this to my face was a Ghanaian male, Black male, of course, who I worked with at my former job that I worked at. And he's telling me this, and I'm sitting here like, I have 3 degrees. I grew up in a predominantly white neighborhood, went to good schools, whatever. And it just doesn't fit my life. Like, it's like, that's not who we are. Like any group, we have our bad seeds, but that's not who Black Americans are very hardworking. We're the loyalty of this fabric. Like, we're what makes America work. Black Americans, ADOS peoples uphold the American values better than any other non-Black American. We've fought in every single war. We are, when they say the land of the free and the home of the brave and all that shit, like, that's us. That's us. A lot of people that claim to be patriotic, they never even served their country. They never even went into the military, ever. But they sit there throwing the flag around like, oh, I'm American. What have you done for America? Except benefit off of free programs. Like, what have you done? You didn't give your life for America. You ain't do shit. You just sitting in your trailer talking about I'm American, watching race NASCAR, and it's a joke. It's a joke. My entire family, like almost everybody I know in my family has served in the military. We've gone to college. We've been law-abiding as citizens. We don't break the laws, unlike Trump and others. We ain't sitting here like, being fraudulent with working with other contractors and not paying them. We're not running away from paying taxes. What makes us so un-American? Like, why should we not claim America when we built the country on top of that? Just saying. Like, it's like, let's keep it 100. Through everything that America's put African Americans through, all we ever wanted to do was to belong and to unite with other Americans. We love being America. And like, when I served in the military, I never felt prouder of myself and of my family. I just felt very proud to serve my country. I was very patriotic. Of course, that was when I was like 18 years old. Now I'm 36. I'm so like disappointed with my country. Disappointed in America. But the one thing that makes me feel forever loyal to the country itself is just because my ancestors built the country. I refuse to allow their hard labor, their blood that was spilled, their sweat, their tears, their deaths. I refuse to let that be in vain. I won't do it. So that's why a lot of African Americans or ADOS peoples are sticking with America, because we deserve to have a slice of America. Shit, we honestly deserve the whole country. So that's going to tie us back into what I was originally creating this video for, was that, we see here that Trump is trying to give money, offering to give money to France. Yet we have people looking at Africa ADOS somehow. Where are we going to get the money from for reparations? Take it out of that fucking bag that Trump is using to give money to France. Fuck France. What are we giving money to France for? So France deserves money for that stupid church burning down more than the descendants of the people who actually built the fucking country. So if America, it's like African Americans, if our ancestors did not build this country to be as successful as it is, America wouldn't even have that type of money to give to anybody. You need to pay your citizens first, which you haven't done. You need to give us our land, cut the fucking check, give us our mules/tools to work our land, the 40 acres and a mule. You need to do all of that before you sitting here reaching in that damn bag of money that you don't deserve. You didn't earn it. And you're giving it away to other countries that are oppressing other black countries. And the reason why, like I said earlier, that I'm not shocked that Trump is doing this, because Trump is so fucking racist. It's so obvious. It's almost like he does stuff on purpose. Like, it's so blatantly obvious that he's racist. And I'm like, is he doing this just to get a jab at people? Like, just to poke us because we know he's racist? We have to watch this. We have to sit here and watch this. So we're sitting here seeing him offer money. So we said, so they said Macron has promised to rebuild a cathedral considered one of the finest examples of Gothic architecture. That is not our history. That's not African history. I don't know shit about Gothic, nothing. And they said more than 700 million euros have been promised by donors within hours of the blaze. So 700 euros in US dollars would be about $14 million. No, I'm sorry, $1,400 million. It's a lot of money. And it says Sanders added that the U.S. stood in solidarity with the millions of people who had visited the cathedral. We stand with France today and offer our assistance in the rehabilitation of this irreplaceable symbol of Western civilization, she said. And let's go down. I was trying to see if they would say how much they were planning to give France. So I don't see that number, and my computer's dragging a bit. So we're going to go into the next website to discuss what happened. So once the cathedral in France burned down, previous to that, I did the video prior to this one. I did a video talking about the 3 black churches that had been burnt down that no one cared about. Like, it really wasn't even making white media, news or national news. So this, as you guys can see, was written by Black America Web. So, sorry, my computer crashed and stopped the last video. So we're going to continue. So it says a crowdfunding campaign for 3 African-American churches in Louisiana recently burned in a hate crime was climbing Tuesday, April 16th, after social media posts urging the public not to forget the plight of the small houses of worship as the eyes of the world were on the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. So it basically took a white church to burn down for us to focus more on our own plight here in America. And that could be for black people, white people, everybody. Like, why are American citizens more concerned about Notre Dame in France than what's happening right here on your own American soil? So it said, as we hold Paris in our hearts today, let's also send some love to our neighbors in Louisiana. A Tuesday tweet from Hillary Clinton read. I'm shocked that she's the one speaking out. And I think that she might be just so that they could be like, oh, the Democratic Party, look what we're doing. We're looking out for you guys. Oh, please. Hillary Clinton has done so much crazy stuff in Haiti and other places. Like, She should be in jail for her war crimes. But it is cute that she's trying to bring us up. But honestly, like that could have been anybody else, and I would have been happier. But so they said many others sent a similar message stating that the Notre Dame restoration will be well funded and urging support for Louisiana churches. It's a blessing, truly a blessing, the Reverend Freddie Jack, president of the 7th District Missionary Baptist Association, told NOLA.com in an interview. All 3 churches are members of the association. It's NOLA, NOLA.com. Suspect Holden Matthews, 21, is in custody in connection with the Louisiana fires and faces charges that include hate crimes. The fires happened in and around Opelousas beginning in late March. Matthews was arrested a week ago. The campaign hit $500,000 Tuesday evening with contributions ranging from $5 to thousands of dollars. It's all working out for the greater good, Jack said when asked about the connection being made to the Notre Dame fire. The money raised will be distributed equally among the 3 century-old churches, St. Mary Baptist Church, which burned on March 26 in Port Barre, and Greater Union Baptist Church and Mount Pleasant Baptist Church in Opelousas, which burned over the following 10 days. So that's good news, right? But basically it took a white church for people to pay attention to the black churches that had already been burnt down due to a hate crime. So it's like America has a lot to atone for. They have a lot this country has a lot to deal with, especially our government. Just a lot to deal with, and they have a lot of wrongs to make right. And that starts with just the hatred that this country has for Black people. Black people have done nothing to anybody in here. If we did, it was out of self-defense because of how we're being treated constantly. We're constantly under attack. And so these 3 churches, which has been, Holden Matthews has been charged with a hate crime, which is justly so. Because it definitely was based on race. Like, why would you burn down Black churches? And these are historical Black churches, centuries old. Why would you do that? Why didn't you burn down a white church? Why are you burning down any churches, to be honest? But America just has a lot of wrongs to get right. They got a lot of wrongs to right before they can be worrying about other people's countries and what their country's going through. Like they said, Notre Dame is going to get the money it needs. Those Catholic churches have stolen so much wealth and money through the transatlantic slave trade. They can rebuild even without the donation. So miss me with that. So we're going to continue on because I saw something else that came to my attention about the Flint water crisis. And this is continuing in the tune of how are we giving money, offering money to France for something that they already have the money for this. They already got the money for the Flint. They already have the money for Notre Dame to be rebuilt because they've stolen a ton. They've made a lot of money off of slavery as well, those Catholic churches. So Flint occurred because, again, our government doesn't give a shit about Black people. So let me see here. Okay, I was reading what they were saying about the society cost from lead exposure across the United States reaches billion-dollar amounts. Okay, so let's go down here to political responses when it comes to Flint, because you want to know, like, what has our government done for us, right? So you look at the federal government, and they said Dan Kildee, Democrat representing Flint in the House of Representatives, along with Republican Michigan Representative Fred Upton, sponsored H.R. 4470. I think it's interesting. It's always for something for Black issues. The Safe Drinking Water Act Improved Compliance Awareness Act, which would ensure that the public promptly learns of excessive lead levels in their drinking water by setting forth how and when states, EPA, and public utilities communicate their findings. It has passed the House, but has yet to be passed by the Senate. The Senate is very, these people are crazy. Let me see something. I want to make sure this thing is still working here. Sorry, guys. It's like I had to. Okay, anyways, I probably lost like the first half of my video, so that's going to be very upsetting if that's true. So let's continue. So among the Michigan congressional delegation, only Representative Justin Amash, Republican of Cascade Township, opposed federal aid for Flint. Amash opined that the U.S. Constitution does not authorize the federal government to intervene in an interstate matter like this one. In December 2016, President Barack Obama signed Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act of 2016, co-sponsored by Debbie Stabenow, stepping out in the Senate, which earmarked $170 million to address the Flint water crisis. The first $100 million was released in March 2017 by the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency after Trump had taken office. So when they say address the Flint water crisis, like, what does that even mean? Like, address it how? Like, with some research or whatever? Like, just say it's to fix it. Like, fix the freaking issue. Fix the water and get it cleaned. So it says President Trump's plan to fix the crisis in Michigan has been folded into his federal infrastructure plan. So that basically means they're just kind of blending it in with other stuff that they want to fix or deal with as far as infrastructure. So Trump's infrastructure plan proposes $1 trillion in spending on new infrastructure by offering corporations who invest in infrastructure projects tax credits, with the corporations investing approximately $167 billion. This plan will require a return of 9 to 10% to investors to remain feasible. This plan has no direct reference to or specific proposal for the crisis in Flint, and as of his election, he has not proposed a direct federal intervention. So that basically means that he has folded what Obama did into a bigger federal infrastructure plan that basically means everyone's going to be getting money out of that one plan, and Flint will most likely be getting forgotten or pushed away to the back of the bus. State legislature. On January 4th, and state legislature means the state laws. So on January 4th, 2016, citing the Flint water crisis, Michigan Representative Phil Phelps, Democrat of Flushing, announced plans to introduce a bill to the Michigan House of Representatives that will make it a felony for state officials to intentionally manipulate or falsify information in official reports, punishable by up to 5 years in prison and a $5,000 fine. On March 2nd, House Democrat leader Tim Grimmel called on Governor Snyder to resign due to his negligence and indifference in his handling of the Flint water crisis. Also on that date, State Democratic Party Chairman Brandon Dillon called for Michigan Treasurer Nick Corey to resign due to his role in a loan agreement from April 2015 that blocked Flint from switching back to the Detroit system. So this is basically the first paragraph. We're talking about the law that was created out of this that would make it a felony for state officials. Well, he introduced a bill. He announced plans to introduce a bill. So it didn't go into effect as of, when he first came out with this. He just announced plans to introduce a bill that would make it a felony for state officials. But the thing is, like, a lot of times they make these laws and they don't really ever get charged with these using these laws. So they still walk away scot-free. White supremacists, racists, white people, non-black people, they usually walk away free from whatever, crime they have committed. And as of today, as far as I know, I did hear that some money was given to Flint, but it's been like 5 years now that we've been dealing with the Flint crisis. And yet you're giving money to build a cathedral that whatever, that has a religion that has backed a lot of sins, a lot of crimes such as pedophilia, slavery, just so many sadistic, terrible things. So let me look at Flint just to see if there was any money given. Let's see, it says money. Flint Christmas money. Because I heard since this happened, they had given money. Since the cathedral burning down happened. Okay, there it goes. I don't want to click on a video because I really don't. Okay, there it goes. So I'm just going to read it. It says Flint received $77 million to fund new water projects. Makes you wonder why they suddenly have money 5 years later. Why did it take so long? That's the question. Like, this should have been a national. This should be a national emergency. I'm going to go to color lines because it's most likely a black publication. I just hope it just loads very easily. So 5 years after the water crisis began, the city continues to recover with projects to protect residents and update infrastructure. That's sad. In this wealthy country, it takes 5 years to get their shit together. That's killing people and harming Americans. We're living like third-class citizens. African Americans live like third-class citizens because Flint is predominantly black. Obviously, if it was white, this issue would have been fixed within the first year. So this is the city of Flint, Michigan has a new resource as it recovers from the water crisis that hit 5 years ago, $77 million in funding from the state. On Monday, April 15th, the Michigan Department of Environmental Quality provided Flint with the money, which the city's Department of Public Works Director Rob Benchick said is not new funding. MLive reports that it is actually from a $120 million federal and state loan granted to Flint in March 2017 by the Water Infrastructure Improvements for the Nation Act of 2016, which is the one that Obama has signed before he left office. Although it is called a loan, the $77 million carries zero interest and was 100% forgiven, meaning it does not have to be repaid. Flint intends to use the funding for various projects, including water meter replacements for homes, installation of water quality monitoring panels, construction of a new chemical feed building, and completion of a pipeline that will connect to a secondary water source. These projects will help the short and long-term sustainability of the water system in the city of Flint, Benchick told MLive, but as stated in the water distribution optimization plan, the water system needs in excess of another $300 million in capital improvements over the next 20 years. Yeah, I was about to say $77 million is not enough for all the damage that's been done to the water and the infrastructure and the people, because I hope that they will be compensated as well for all that they have endured dealing with this water crisis in Flint. And this is not the only town or city that this is happening in. There's a lot of other black towns, which I'm going to show you guys another one in a minute, where this is occurring, like this just more crimes against black people. And it's like, where are the reparations at? Where's the money? So stop giving money to France and Israel and everybody under the sun, and pay your citizens first. So it says Flint is still completing its Fast Start pipe program, which seeks to replace lead and galvanized steel water service lines throughout the city. It is estimated that it could take until 2020 to replace the approximate 20,000 lines. The Flint water crisis was created by an April 2014 decision to switch the majority black city's water source from the Great Lakes Water Authority to the Flint River. It resulted in a doubling of the percentage of Flint children with elevated levels of lead in their blood. In addition, there was a decrease in fertility and an increase in miscarriages and infant deaths. So was that really their whole purpose, was to kill us off and make sure we can't have any more babies because they can't have any babies? And then it says among the fatalities were 12 people who died from Legionnaire's disease linked to the toxic water. In April 2018, the state ended its free bottled water distribution program to the city's residents, despite concerns that the drinking water was still not fully safe. So that's what black people are going through. You know, and people are wondering why we need reparations and, you know, slavery was a long time ago. No, it's still happening. You know, we're still living a slavery type life in a first world country. We're living a third world experience. So let me continue with this article from The Guardian. It says, "We are not a dump. Poor Alabama towns struggle under the stench of toxic landfills." Of course, the woman they would have on the cover is a black woman. My family has actually been in Alabama for 200 years, so this story really stuck out to me. And it says, imports of waste from across the country have turned parts of the state into a toilet bowl, and residents are fighting back. So let's jump right in here. It says, West Jefferson, Alabama, a somnolent town of around 420 people northwest of Birmingham. I'm from Montgomery. Birmingham, I think, is a little bit up north, if I recall. Or maybe it's a little bit down south. Anyways, was an unlikely venue to seize the national imagination. Now he has the misfortune to be forever associated with the poop train. David Brasfield, a retired coal miner who has lived in West Jefferson for 45 years, thought at first the foul stench came from the carcass of a shot pig. By the time he realized that human feces was being transported from 1,000 miles away to a nearby landfill site, a scene of biblical pestilence was unfolding upon West Jefferson. The odor was unbearable, as were the flies and stink bugs, said Brasfield, who sports a graying handlebar mustache and describes himself as a conservative Republican. The flies were so bad that you couldn't walk outside without being inundated by them. You'd be covered in all sorts of insects. People started getting headaches. They couldn't breathe. You wouldn't even go outside to put meat on the barbecue. The landfill called Big Sky Environmental sits on the fringes of West Jefferson and is permitted to accept waste from 48 U.S. Wow. is permitted to accept waste from 48 U.S. states. That's incredible. That's really bad. It used a nearby rail spur to import sewage from New York and New Jersey. This epic fecal odyssey was completed by trucks which took on the waste and rumbled through West Jefferson, sometimes spilling dark liquid on sharp turns to the landfill. Gross. Dang, they said Alabama has become a dumping ground for the country as waste from all over the U.S. ends up in its landfill sites. That's horrible. This isn't making the national news. They said outrage at this arrangement reached a crescendo in April last year when Jefferson County, of which West Jefferson is part, barred the landfill operator from using the rail spur. Mulattoes train carriages began backing up near several neighboring towns. Oh my goodness, it's just a nightmare here, said Heather Hall, mayor of Parish, where the unwanted cargo squatted for 2 months. It smells like rotting corpses or carcasses. It smells like death. And that's what Black people go through, is death. You're living, but you're dying. America's dumping ground. Residents started hounding the phone lines of elected officials and showed up at public meetings with bags of dead flies. One man described the smell as similar to 25,000 people taking a dump around your house. The growing national media attention eventually stung New York and New Jersey, which halted convoys of human waste to the site. Like, what made them think this was going to be okay? Seriously. This is disgusting. It's just like, this is what they think of the poor people. And look at this. Listen to this paragraph. But while the distress lifted from West Jefferson, other communities across Alabama struggle forlornly in a miasma of nearby landfills. Alabama has gained a reputation as the dumping ground of the U.S., with toxic waste from across the country typically heaped near poor rural communities, many with large African American populations. Are we surprised? Of course not. So if you're going to destroy any community, it's going to be ours. It's going to be an ADOS, African American, American descendants of slaves community. That's who they're going to dump fecal matter and waste on. But people wonder why we need reparations. Alabama has a total of 173 operational landfills, more than 3 times as many as New York. Wow. A state with a population 4 times greater, but with just 54 dumps. This is hard to even read. Like, this is just astounding to me. This is my first time actually reading this article. I'm like, because I've heard some of this, I think, on Yvette's show, Breaking Brown, but I never really read the details. And it's like, this is difficult to even read. California, 3 times larger than Alabama and containing 8 people for every Alabamian, has just a handful more landfills than the southern state. So it says Alabama has 35 landfill sites per million residents, compared with New York State, which has just 3 for every million. So Alabama has 35, California 5, New York State 3. Okay. That's horrible. So you take a poor rural area, take advantage of the people, and turn their farming land into a dumping ground so a few people can make a profit, said Nelson Brook, head of the Black River Riverkeeper organization. Parts of our state have been turned into a toilet bowl, and there isn't the political spine to stop it. Many of the largest landfills are clustered in a region known as the Black Belt, a stretch of counties around Alabama's midriff named initially for its fertile topsoil, but latterly known for the tenant farmers and sharecroppers that helped form the basis of its large Black population today. The lowland values and extreme poverty of the region make it a magnet for landfills, with waste hauled in from across the country for as little as $1 a ton. Sickening. This is just sickening. This makes you so angry. Acceptance of landfills is delegated to counties, causing potential conflicts of interest with local officials involved in waste disposal. I'm sure the politicians' pockets are being lined somehow with them allowing this to come into their districts, which is why you need to vote local elections too, guys, because they said, let me read the sentence again. Acceptance of landfills is delegated to counties. So it's up to the counties to accept these landfills. And so they said this is causing potential conflicts of interest with local officials involved in waste disposal. So that means there's local officials involved in this. They're probably getting, somehow incentives or money bribes or whatever, like given to them. So you have to be careful, like who is running for office locally as well as nationally. And honestly, I think the local election, I think the local, what do I want? I want to say elected, but the local politicians, I feel like they have more influence and power than the president because a lot of them are in Congress and they're the ones who create the laws and enforce the laws, etc. So it's just a lot to sink in, but we have to let this sink in and learn from this. So let me continue. It says a continual refrain for decades in Alabama is that politicians are selling out their people, which is what they always do. So that's, so what I just said, that's basically what they're doing. They're selling out their communities. They don't care as long as they line their pockets like Jim Clyburn and all the others. They don't care. They're just selling out these rural, poor communities that are predominantly Black, and then they want to look stupid and say we shouldn't be giving them reparations. Why? Because you hate Black people? I mean, everybody else is getting them who don't even deserve them as much as we do. They said Connor Bailey, an academic at Auburn University, it's a long tradition. Yes, it is. So you have environmental injustice, a crucible of the civil rights movement, from the Selma to Montgomery March to the Rosa Parks inspired bus boycotts to the Birmingham church bombing. Alabama's racial disparity and pollution exposure has become only more stark. There's basically just one more thing added to the list of atrocities that's been done to Black Americans since we been dragged to this country. So they say a landfill near Email in Sumter County, where the neighboring community is about 90% Black and a third of people live in poverty, at one point accepted 40% of all hazardous waste disposal in the U.S. Anniston, Alabama, where half the residents are Black, won a high-profile settlement from Monsanto after the dumping of so much PCBs, chemicals linked to cancers and liver damage, that a local creek turned red. That's disgusting. There are still major problems in Alabama resulting from environmental injustice, and there does not appear to be will on part of its government to reverse these problems, said Reich Longes, a law professor at Duke University. Alabama's history with Jim Crow and preservation of segregation, as well as suppressing voting rights, made these problems worse by segregating communities and disenfranchising Black Americans in their communities. So many homes near the sprawling Stone's Throw landfill east of Montgomery, which is where I'm from, are now abandoned. The landfill, which can accept 1,500 tons of construction debris, ash, asbestos, sludge, and other material each day, is located in the Ashurst Bar Smith community, which is around 3/4 African American. It's almost unbearable to live there. Even 3 miles away, my eyes burn and I get nauseous, said Phyllis Gosa, now retired and living in Selma, but still visits family who have owned property in the community since the end of slavery. It's our heritage. We are losing who we are. When it comes to people of color, she means Black people. I don't like being called people of color because this does not apply to everybody as people of color. It just applies to Black people. When it comes to a lot of Black people are afraid to say Black people because it used to be fearful just to even say something that's just for Black people. But she says we are still 3/5 of a human being. The 14th Amendment doesn't apply to us. That's who Alabama is. That's its legacy. Ron Smith, and she's accurate on that. Ron Smith, a neighbor and pastor, said there is pressure on Black families to sell devalued land to the expanding landfill. He grows blueberries in his backyard, but is uncertain if he should eat them. Our government picked an area where people couldn't defend themselves, he said. This is the perfect area. Unlike the 1960s civil rights push, there has been no federal savior. In April 2017, a group of residents claimed that Alabama's intolerance of the Stone's Throw landfill had caused chronic illness such as asthma and cancer, pungent smells, and water pollution, thereby breaching the Civil Rights Act's prohibition of race-based discrimination. Ugh, gross. Hold on. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Ugh. In December, the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency, EPA, decided there was insufficient evidence for the complaint despite finding that the Alabama Department of Environmental Management, ADM, had improperly enforced the requirement that 6 inches of covering soil be placed upon landfill waste every day. ADM wrote to the landfill also in December, scolding it for excessive discharges of copper, oil, grease, and suspended solids between 2016 and 2018. However, while the EPA found a preponderance of the evidence that a lack of enforcement did result in adverse impacts, other white majority communities also lived under this inadequate regime meaning the blight couldn't be defined as racist. The finding follows a familiar pattern by the EPA. The agency's Civil Rights Office went 22 years without deciding that discrimination laws were broken despite hundreds of complaints. Okay, let me continue. Trapped. More than 40 Black residents have now turned to the courts suing Advanced Disposal Services, which operates Stone's Throw, and 2 water utilities for allowing heavy metals, E. coli, and a cocktail of harmful chemicals to leach into the water supply, and they claim cause their abdominal cancers. Alabama seems to have an inordinate number of these big landfills that have created a variety of problems, said Ted Mann, the attorney representing the residents. Mann, an Alabamian Democrat who has an abstract painting of Abraham Lincoln in his Birmingham office, said his clients feel trapped. A Dem doesn't do much of anything, he said, underfunded, understaffed, and woefully and inadequately involved in the environmental issues in our state. The crossover between pollution and racism is hard to not see, Mann said. If you see it and you ignore it, it's because you just want to ignore it. Other communities aren't able to muster legal recourse. Uniontown, half an hour west of the Civil Rights touchdown of Selma, is a place where 9 out of 10 residents are Black, and the median household income is $14,000 a year. Uniontown's roads are derelict. The only grocery store closed last year, and its elementary school can only afford to educate children up to grade 3. Uniontown is also home to the Arrowhead landfill, an artificial green mountain twice the size of the New York Central Park that looms over the tumble-down town. It can accept up to 15,000 tons of waste a day from 33 states. In 2012, ADEM allowed Arrowhead to expand in size by 2/3. A group of residents have spent the past decade complaining about a smell similar to rotten eggs coming from the landfill, as well as the site's coal ash for causing an array of health problems such as sore throats and nosebleeds. Arrowhead said the no-coal ash has been delivered to the landfill since 2010. This landfill is a huge hill in the midst of the community, said Esther Calhoun, who has lived in Uniontown most of her life. That smell, it makes you want to vomit. The pecan trees, they don't bear anymore. Even the garden that I had, we don't use it anymore. But in March last year, a few months before its similar Civil Rights Act decision over Stone's Throw, the EPA ruled that Uniontown has not been subjected to a prima facie case of discrimination. All right, so basically, EPA is just shutting down all their complaints, saying it's not discrimination, even though this is happening to predominantly Black neighborhoods and Black communities. So this knockback has shrouded Uniontown in fatalistic hopelessness, according to local activists. They are trying to break our spirit, said Ben Eaton, a retired teacher who speaks in a rumbling baritone and moves around with the aid of a walker. Eaton, now a county commissioner, had just come from a meeting where Arrowhead was asked to pay some fees up front so the county could afford an ambulance service. It's a sort of learned helplessness, he said. People are hanging on by a thread right now. Well, my folks have always taught me to go down fighting, even if you go down. Mike Smith, an attorney for Arrowhead, said neither ADEM nor the EPA have ever found excessive odor, air pollution, or water contamination. The residents you may have spoken to have been offered multiple opportunities, both formal and informal, to present any evidence of pollution and have failed to do so, he said. Smith added that the Uniontown... He said what? They don't need to present evidence of pollution. You need to go get it. You guys are the ones who brought your feces there. So they said Smith added that the Uniontown community and surrounding Perry County benefit substantially from jobs and host fee payments provided by Arrowhead, with the landfill also sponsoring school supplies for the past decade. School supplies for what? The school that can only host like 3 up to grade 3? Give me a break. ADEM insisted it has environmental justice top of mind in its regulatory activities, with a spokeswoman stating the agency went above and beyond its legal requirements when consulting with residents living in West Jefferson, Uniontown, and Ashurst, Barr, and Smith. The department is confident that it has the resources and statutory authorization to properly regulate and monitor landfills in Alabama to ensure the protection of human health and the environment, the spokeswoman added. We're not a dump. But even as West Jefferson, where the poop train was defeated, there is little hope of a lasting resolution in the tensions between the desire to generate income and community concern over quality of life. In July, ADEM handed the Big Sky environmental landfill a 5-year extension to its permit. ADEM has also proposed changing the rules so that permits last for 10 rather than 5 years and has rescinded its environmental discrimination procedures claiming its existing complaints process is sufficient. Let every state take care of their own trash, but don't bring it to Alabama, said David Brasfield, the retired miner. We just don't need it. We're better than that. We're not a dump. But it will happen again if we let it. We cannot forget it and put it out of our minds. This is my home, and I plan on defending it. So you hear that, right? So that's just like slavery. You cannot forget it. Don't let it happen. Don't put it out of your minds. Don't let people forget. At this critical time, okay, so there's about some other things. But yeah, so that's just some of the conditions that ADOS is living in and why reparations is so vital to our survival, because it's only going to get worse with inflation. And as we progress, we're going to have less and less wealth as they continue to, white supremacy continues to just push down and bear down on a specific group of people who already have it pretty hard. So, let's see here. So this is one more article I wanted to go over. This is discussing the lack of funding that Black schools get compared to white schools. So it says in the United States today, approximately 12.8 million students on 27% of all those in school attend school in a district in which over 75% of students are non-white. In a new report, researchers at EdBuild, a nonprofit that analyzes school funding issues, calculate that these students are getting dramatically shortchanged on the school funding front. The majority of racially concentrated non-white districts are also low income. Poor non-white districts educate about 20% of American students. By contrast, while 26% of American students attend school in a district where more than 75% of students are white, only 5% attend school in a racially concentrated white poor district. So they're basically saying where the majority of the schools are white, only 5% of that population is going into a concentrated white poor district. So they said the researchers at EdBuild calculated the racially concentrated non-white districts receive, on average, only $11,682 of funding per student in comparison to $13,908 for racially concentrated white districts. Collectively, this means that, as EdBuild notes, non-white school districts receive $23 billion less than white districts, despite serving the same number of students. Let's see if that was the end of the article. Okay, so there's a gaps between racially concentrated white and non-white districts persist even among high-poverty schools. On average, nationwide high-poverty white districts receive approximately $1,500 more per student than high-poverty non-white districts, although they still receive less funding than wealthier white districts. Additionally, even low-poverty non-white districts receive less per student funding than high-poverty white districts. All right, so let me go down. So school funding matters. In an oft-cited paper published in the American Economic Journal, the economists Julian LaFortune, Jesse Rothstein, and Diane Whitmore Schagenbach calculated that 1990s era school finance reforms produced large improvements in achievement for students in low-income districts that receive more funding. Likewise, in a paper published in the Quarterly Journal of Economics in 2016, researchers C. Carabo Jackson, Rucker C. Johnson, and Claudia Persico concluded that increases in school funding resulting from lawsuits led to students completing more years of education and enjoying higher wages and lower rates of poverty in adulthood. So let's go down. Despite this knowledge, most states continue to rely on local property taxes for school funding, which dramatically disadvantages low-income districts. The EdBuild report also discouragingly notes that a recent popular antidote to school funding issues, lawsuits, is not solving the problem. In fact, some of the states with the worst funding gaps are also states in which advocates have successfully brought aggressive school funding lawsuits against state funding formulas. In New Jersey, for example, where courts forced the state to award more funding to poor urban districts, there's a whopping $7,300 per student funding gap between poor white and poor non-white districts. In California and New York, both sites of lengthy school finance litigation, gaps between poor white and non-white districts are approximately $4,000 per student. Okay, so it says. Excuse me. So it said other progressive states are not immune. In Washington, for example, poor non-white districts receive over $8,000 fewer dollars per student than poor white districts. So one of the things that is really interesting about this particular project is that even states that are known for really doing right by their kids are failing on this front, says Rebecca Sibilia, the chief executive officer of EdBill. It's nuts how these numbers came out. For Sibilia and EdBill, the findings also cast doubt on race-neutral school funding reform strategies that rest on the assumption that simply increasing funding for all low-income districts will solve pervasive racial school funding gaps. Neither the courts nor legislatures have fixed the fundamental school funding problem for low-income students. The report concludes, but they're even further from a fix for students to concentrate in non-white districts, regardless of wealth. Finding such a system, EdBill's researchers conclude many require finally committing to challenging the funding aspect of local control. So that's another reason why we need to have reparations, because as you can see, as Yvette Carnell has spoken about, and Antonio Moore, just about property and how Black properties typically don't have the same value or retain the same value that white-owned properties do. So if you're getting money from property tax, then obviously if you're doing redlining and Black people can only stay in one part of a district or a community, city, compared to white people, white families, then obviously our schools the Black schools are going to receive less tax dollars. That's going to hurt our teachers being paid, the resources that we'll have at those schools, such as books, computers, supplies, etc., including extracurricular activities such as music, sports, so on and so forth. So this again just shows how disenfranchised the Black community is, the ADOS, American Descendants of Slaves community is, and why reparations, again, is just so important as we continue to live in this legacy of slavery. So even though they claim that they freed us, Black people, from slavery, we're still basically enslaved. We're still living a third world country existence. We're still 3/5 of a human. We're still, voting rights is not permanent. We're just continuing, like mass incarceration, the killings of unarmed Black people, like the atrocities just continue. Landfills in the backyards of people's homes, and legislation, like the politicians aren't doing shit about it. And then you have these schools that are just struggling, and it's like these kids, like if they don't have the same funding, they don't have the same opportunities. Like how can you expect a Black child to compete with a white child when your school receives less funding, which means teachers have lower salaries, and you don't probably have the latest books. Like I've seen some schools, some Black schools have they don't even have books. They copy pages out of one book and pass those pages around to students. That's unacceptable. That's horrible. It's like I call this a hashtag new Jim Crow. This is feeling like back in the days, what we fought for, why, Martin Luther King Jr. marched with all these civil rights, quote unquote, these leaders who now, Al Sharpton, Jesse Jackson, all of them, who haven't done, I just don't see them really doing much for Black people at this point. But this is what they fought for. Like the integration was to give Black people the same opportunities that white people have. Because no matter what they say is being done, that money, it always comes down to money. And that money just does not ever quite make its way to the Black community in the amounts that it should be. So as this article stated, because it was a little bit difficult to read and make sense of it, because they were saying non-white and white. I wish they would have said Black and white, just keep it simple. But basically what it's saying is that even the poor white schools are getting more money than the poor Black schools. So you basically have 3 levels of this. You have the wealthy white schools, you got the poor white schools, and then you got the poor Black schools, because there are no wealthy Black schools. Just like Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore say, like that the wealthy Blackness doesn't exist. It does not exist. Not as a whole, not as a collective. People look on TV and they say, well, you have Oprah, you have Michael Jordan, you've got, Beyonce. So what? Is Beyonce going to come pay my bills this month? Is she going to be just taking care of my children when I die? Is Michael Jordan, does he even go back to the hood at all? Oprah's a sellout. Look what she did with Michael Jackson. It's like, and we couldn't do anything about it. We're powerless because we don't have money. So for election 2020, I want everyone who believes in what we're doing, ADOS, to vote for the candidate that has your best interest at heart. And if you don't really know like which candidate that would be, because let me tell you now, like if you don't vote for the right candidate, you could be hurting yourself as well as other, ADOS peoples. But it's just like a matter of like, you have to get the vote right. And so to me personally, I figured, I would definitely keep abreast of like what's going on with the elections and election campaigns, but I probably will definitely would tune into Yvette Carnell and Antonio Moore of Tone Talks to see like, who do they recommend we should vote for? And then you do some more research and see if that's the candidate that you should go with. But this is about becoming politically literate, like knowing and understanding politics, because this is the country you live in. You're a citizen of this country. You belong to this country. If you're ADOS and you built this country, you belong here more than anyone else. So you need to know like who's trying to be in charge of everything, who's trying to be the country's leader. Do they have your best interest at heart? So I'm going to say it one more time. There's there's 3 parties and a write-in. So you can do Republican, Democrat, or Independent Party. Or you can write in whatever you want to write in for the president. You don't have to choose one of the 2 lesser evils. That's unacceptable. It's just unacceptable. Like Trump and Hillary Clinton running, it's like, okay, let's vote for Hillary because she's a Democrat. So they're not going to do shit for you. And it actually makes it worse because black people think, oh, there's a Democrat in office, we're good. And so we get off our square, we get off our post, we get off our game, our focus, and we think we're good and we can kick back, put our feet up, watch football and drink beer and eat nachos because we have a Democrat in office. And while we're looking away, they are ripping our lives apart. They are creating laws, creating policies that will completely disintegrate blackness, destroy the black race as a whole. I mean, Obama went all the way to Africa to threaten Kenya and said, if you don't support LGBT, we're going to stop giving you aid or trading with you or something along those lines. That's unacceptable. Who the fuck are you to tell us what we need to do? That's not our tradition. That's not our culture. Leave that to the white people. Leave that to Europe. Let them be, doing whatever. And it's not to say that I'm against gays or for gays or whatever. That's not the discussion right now because that's going to be a whole other story for a whole other day. That's about not having the power to just say, I don't give a shit what you say. In this country, this is not what we stand for. America gets to say they're a democracy, even though they're not. And this is what we stand for. So who are you to go tell other people how to run their countries? America's been doing too much of that. All these white countries have been doing too much of trying to run African countries. Who the hell are you? You're just random ass white person. Stop it. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and let you guys go because this video is like way longer than I wanted it to be. And I hope I can recover the first half of my video. I might just do a part 1, part 2 series since this video is probably going to go long. But until I see you guys again or talk to you again, take care of yourselves and each other. Peace, love, and light. I'm gone. Bye.